Miko, I screamed, stop that illegal digging, like I was drilling for oil, on her Botox budget. All I did was dig a post hole, on my own land for my own fence. But 5 minutes later, there were sirens, citations, and one furious HOA Karen hyperventilating like she'd just caught me stealing sunlight. She thought calling the cops would scare me into submission. She wanted control over my land. I gave her a lesson in boundary law with a side of blackout. You ever seen a $4 million house go dark faster than a microwave burrito? That's where this story gets really interesting. Comment where you're watching this unfold. You ever dig a hole so legally sound it causes a neighborhood power outage? I was just out there at 7:00 a.m. With my old Kubota, doing what my dad used to call honest work, replacing fence posts, pouring concrete, minding my own ranch-shaped business. The sun was still stretching its arms, and there I was, halfway through a second post, when I heard the sound of entitlement approaching. You know the one, heels on gravel, iced coffee sloshing like a storm warning. That's when she arrived, Charlene Mayweather, HOA president, walking like she owned every square inch of Texas and half of Oklahoma. Now Charlene didn't knock. Charlene announced, "You are in violation of HO Sightline Protocol 7.3b and must stop that illegal digging immediately." I blinked, thought maybe I'd hit a gas line and hallucinated a Morse code. No ma'am. I was simply putting a fence back where it belonged, with permits, maps, and a county stamp that still had ink drying. I showed her the documents. She didn't read them. Instead, she pointed toward her McMansion like Moses with a manicure and shouted, "I don't approve of that equipment near my property values." I could have laughed. I should have. But Charlene was already calling 911, reporting heavy machinery, unapproved excavation, and my personal favorite, hostile landscaping. 10 minutes later, Sheriff Robbins pulled in with the same look your dad gives when the dog ate drywall and blamed the cat. "Art," he sighed, "I know you're not the problem here, but county protocol says I have to issue a pause order until this gets reviewed." He took the keys to my excavator like he was collecting contraband at a kindergarten, and handed me a citation so fresh it still smelled like printer ink. Charlene grinned like she'd just won the HOA Hunger Games. "This neighborhood has standards," she said, fluffing her robe like a Disney villain headed to brunch. "And I'll admit it, I almost quit. Almost packed up that fence project and said forget it. But then I remembered my father's words, son, never let paperwork beat principle." And more importantly, I remembered what Charlene forgot. The power to her house ran through my land. And it just so happened, I had the deed that could make things real interesting. So stick around. Because while she called the cops over a fence post, I was about to teach her what happens when you mess with a man whose breaker box holds your destiny. She thought a shovel was a threat. She didn't know I also inherited the power lines. My mailbox used to get coupons. Now it delivers daily slaps from the HOA. The first violation came with a pastel envelope and a passive-aggressive font. Improper tool storage. Visible shovel offends neighborhood harmony. By day 3, I had a full-blown HOA novella stuffed in my mailbox. One letter dinged me for having a toolbox that contrasted with the earth tone motif. Another one, fence repair visually disrupts community tranquility. That's right. Apparently, my hammer had too much attitude. My neighbors, folks who used to wave, chat, and borrow sugar, started looking at me like I was building a meth lab instead of fixing a fence. One canceled an electrical job I'd been scheduled to do for weeks. "Nothing personal, Clay," he texted. "But HOA's watching you like a hawk in heat." Even Linda, who once gave me homemade peach cobbler, now speed walked past my house like she owed me money. Then came the community-wide HOA alert, subject urgent safety notice digging disruption. Written, of course, by Charlene Whitaker. "Mr. Clay Duggar has displayed unpredictable behavior, unauthorized equipment use, and potential hostility." Hostile, I've used the same post hole digger since 1998, But now it was apparently a mechanical threat to peaceful residency. That's when the real drama started. One morning I found someone had spray painted "Go Away" over my brand new security cameras. 2 had been knocked off their mounts. That afternoon, a load of busted drywall and moldy carpet dumped right across my driveway like a trashy love letter from HOA hell. It wasn't just disrespect, it was strategy, designed to provoke, to isolate, to break me down like I was the weak plank in their designer deck. But here's what Charlene didn't know. While she was busy vandalizing my visible cameras, I'd hidden a decoy, deep in the begonias, powered, encrypted, and streaming. It caught every move, every whisper, every trash dump, and most importantly, every face. Petty power dressed in paperwork is still just a tantrum with a title. She thought she was playing chess. She didn't know I'd already installed a queen in her flower bed. Comment if you've ever faced petty power. And stick around. We're just one step from checkmate. If you want real surveillance, don't call the NSA. Call Betty with her kitchen binoculars. Charlene thought she'd isolated me. Thought she'd made the air too thick for anyone to breathe near my property line. But the thing about quiet folks, they listen, and they record. Tuesday morning, just after sunrise, there's a soft knock. I open the door and standing there is Betty Lou, 84.5 foot nothing, and powered by grit and instant coffee. She slips me a USB like we're in a spy novel and whispers, "You're not crazy. That woman's been lying and I've got proof." Betty had filmed everything. From the first scream of, "Stop that illegal digging immediately," to the phantom dump truck sneaking concrete debris into my driveway at 20:15 a.m., her kitchen window view, full on HD surveillance headquarters. And the audio, crystal. The best part, her cam caught Charlene directing the whole act like a maestro of petty, clipboard in one hand, lad in the other, pointing where to dump. You could even hear her mutter, "Let's make it unlivable for him." I drove straight to the sheriff's office and handed Sheriff Donnelly the envelope. He didn't say much. Watched the video once, twice. On the third loop, he pressed pause, leaned back in his chair, and sighed like he was trying to push the stupid out of his lungs. "Clay, I'll be honest. This is damning, but protocol's a snail on a government leash. I can't override county dispute law without due process," which meant, legally, I was still on timeout, while Charlene threw bricks through my reputation like it was a glass house she'd never have to live in. I went home frustrated, stared at the pile of HOA citations on my dining table. Tool too loud. Flag too large. Hydrangea too bold. I swear if breathing could be measured in decibels, she'd fine me for exhaling too forcefully. But while I couldn't legally retaliate yet, I could dig. And not just holes. Paper trails. I opened Dad's old filing chest, the one that smelled like oil, leather, and careful planning. He'd labeled every folder like he was expecting a future court case. Taxes 91, livestock fence specs, and tucked in the back, easement, Brightstream Electric, 2014. Now, let me tell you something about old ranchers and legal language. They don't trust lawyers, but they love loopholes. And buried in Clause 3 of that agreement was a paragraph so sweet. I nearly teared up. Grantee shall forfeit all easement rights in the event of sustained harassment or interference with grantor's peaceful enjoyment of property. Translation. Charlene's fancy pants power lines ran right through my back pasture, and her tantrum parade just stomped through every legal red flag in that contract. I called Jake, my college roommate turned real estate attorney. He laughed for 3 straight minutes. "Clay, you're sitting on a tactical nuke, and she doesn't even know she lit the fuse." Jake walked me through it. I'd need to document everything, dates, damage video, and a formal notice of termination filed through the county clerk, if the court approved it. Brightstream Power had 48 hours to shut off service to her mansion. That was the first time I smiled in a week. And here's the kicker. Charlene wasn't just standing on a power line, she was building her entire HOA kingdom on my electricity. Literally. The pool pump, the landscape lights, even the glowing address sign with cursive font that screamed, "I summer in Scottsdale." All of it juiced through wires trespassing on land she'd spent 3 years trying to conquer. I stayed up all night organizing folders, labeling evidence, timestamping every clip. By morning I wasn't just a neighbor. I was a legal cannon pointed at a $4 million glass palace. Good neighbors don't just wave. They install motion sensors and keep their receipts. She filed complaints. I filed paperwork. Let's see what happens when HOA Power meets a notarized nuke. She said the tree blocked her aesthetic sunrise. I said it held my mother's soul. Guess who won? My dad and I planted that oak the year Mom passed. 8 years old, 1 shovel, and too many tears for a kid who just learned what widower meant. That tree wasn't just shade, it was sacred. For 30 years it grew taller than grief and stronger than silence. Charlene thought it was visual clutter. She didn't knock, just sent her landscaping goons at 300 a.m. under the cloak of HOA darkness, like chainsaw-wielding raccoons with a budget. One swing, and the rope swing snapped. Another, and my childhood cracked like a rib. I bolted outside in boots and rage, but the damage was done. The tree lay in pieces, limbs scattered like confetti from a funeral. "Sir, this is community-approved vegetation management." One of them said, holding a clipboard like it was a badge. I didn't speak. I didn't swing. But I saw red, oak red. Then I heard Dad's voice echo in the hollow where the swing used to be. "Son, when you act in fury, you lose the right to call it justice." That one sentence was heavier than any axe. So instead of jail time, I made coffee and opened the old trunk. His files were alphabetized tighter than a submarine drawer. Amid the labeled folders, tractor receipts, well, permit 1998, there it was, easement agreement, Hartwell property 2014. It looked harmless, until page 3, That's where Charlene's empire caught fire. Grantee forfeits all easement rights in event of harassment or interference with property owner. You could almost hear the legal gods giggling. Me. I wasn't just allowed to cut her power. I was required to. In Dad's neat handwriting was a post-it note: if she ever forgets we're neighbors, remind her with silence. This was bigger than tree revenge. Me. This was electric karma. Charlene's entire 8,000 square foot palace, air-conditioned entitlement and marble ego, ran its power line straight across my land, built by my dad, protected by his foresight. Me. I wasn't just the angry neighbor anymore. I was the utility company. The best part, all her attacks, the fake violations, the show A letters, the sidewalk fines, were now Exhibit A in a contract breach. The clause didn't just open a door, it gave me the whole hallway. She'd chainsawed her way right into a blackout clause. I called Jake, my old college roommate turned real estate attorney. Jake, what would happen if I terminated an easement on harassment grounds? He laughed. What kind of harassment? I said, chainsaw. He said, oh hell yes. We reviewed everything: footage, citations, OA newsletters, even the psychotic sticky note she left on my truck. You are aesthetic garbage, Jake whistled. Clay, this ain't a case, it's a screenplay. So I filed the paperwork. Full legal termination. Sheriff Martinez needed to witness the disconnect. Power company scheduled the pull. Everything was ready. I sat on the porch that night holding the same mug Dad always used. Except this time it wasn't coffee inside. It was calm. Charlene didn't know any of this yet. She was busy hosting a community beautification gala and giving speeches about neighborhood harmony. Meanwhile, I was about to give her a crash course in the Geneva Conventions of Easement Law. That oak tree, it wasn't just bark and branches. It was memory, love, and lineage rooted in justice. She thought cutting it down would make me crumble. Instead, it made me unstoppable. Grief is a root. You can cut the trunk, but the soul grows sideways. She thought cutting my tree would break me. She didn't know it just plugged me into something stronger. Most people skim contracts. My dad read them like a priest reads scripture, slow, loud, and with vengeance. Jake called it a unicorn clause, rare, sparkly, and powerful enough to impale an entire HOA. Most of these easements are limp handshake agreements, he said. But your dad wrote this like he was preparing for legal war. And son, he left you a bazooka, so I got to work. Not emotionally, legally. A 4-inch binder, 6 dividers, a gallon of coffee, and 14 hours of organizing every HOA letter, police report, screenshot, time-stamped photo, and that glorious video of Charlene yelling, I am the property code, while in flip-flops and a wine vezzer. It had everything but a theme song. Jake helped me draft the easement termination request with all the righteous fire of a preacher with Excel. The evidence stack was so thick, even the county clerk muttered, Welp, this one's gonna rattle some granite countertops. I filed it under material breach, the legal equivalent of, bless her heart, now watch her swit. By 10:42 a.m., the case was stamped, signed, and on its way to the courthouse for approval. At 11:17 a.m., I was on the phone with the power company. Line disconnected, customer service transferred me 5 times, And finally I landed in the legal compliance department, where a gentleman named Lou answered with the energy of a man who's just been handed a popcorn-worthy problem. Sir, if you have a signed easement termination on file with county approval, we are legally obligated to cut service within 24 hours. Pause. Do you want us to call her first? No, I said. Let the silence explain it. By noon I had confirmation. The disconnect order was scheduled for 7:00 a.m. sharp, sheriff's office notified, power crew assigned. I wrote the time down on a yellow sticky note and stuck it on the fridge. 7:00 a.m., Operation Flip the Switch. Meanwhile, Charlene was busy holding an emergency HOA meeting titled, Community Safety and Aesthetic Threat Response. She passed out flyers with a picture of my excavator. Warning, it was military-grade equipment known to cause neighbor unrest. I wasn't invited, but Betty Lou was, and she live-streamed the whole thing. The highlight was Charlene telling her supporters, he thinks he's smart, but he can't just turn off my power. That's not how this country works. Oh, Charlene, That's exactly how this country works, when you sign a document and break every line of it in front of a grandma with a camcorder. That night I grilled a steak, drank a cold beer, and toasted my dad's ghost with the same smirk he used to flash when someone underestimated him. Charlene had scorched my tree, painted me a villain, and turned my name into an HOA cautionary tale. But what she didn't do was read the fine print. The most dangerous man isn't the loud one, it's the one who reads the entire PDF. She burned my past. I just pulled the plug on her future. She ruled the HOA like a prom queen turned prosecutor. Then I flicked a switch and she vanished. By 6:30 a.m., my driveway looked like a tailgate party for justice. The sheriff pulled up first, sipping gas station coffee like it was holy water. Then came the power company's bucket truck, humming like a priest ready to perform an exorcism. And then the folding chairs started unfolding. 12 neighbors, lawn ornaments in their own right, each with coffee mugs and decades of pent-up HOA rage. Someone even brought muffins. Charlene had no idea this was her retirement party. At 6:50 a.m., the last porch light flickered across the cold, deep sack. Charlene's mansion glowed like a lighthouse of entitlement. Every chandelier on, pool jets blasting, and security cameras blinking like paparazzi drones. She wasn't just burning power, she was taunting fate with an LED light show. That was fine by me. Because fate had brought a breaker switch and a compliance technician named Carlos who wore sunglasses at dawn like a man who'd seen things. Final confirmation. Sheriff Dorsey said, "You understand the consequences?" "Yes, sir," I replied. "I'm not cutting her power. I'm enforcing a clause. Legally." Carlos nodded. "Best clause I've seen since my divorce papers." And then click. The breaker flipped with a sound that felt biblical. Not loud, just final. The kind of silence that falls after a gavel drops or a mic is thrown. Charlene's 8,000 square foot Barbie bunker dimmed like a dying star. The hum of the AC cut out. Pool jets stuttered. Every smug bulb went black like a theatrical exit she didn't plan. Right on cue, Charlene stormed outside wearing silk pajamas, bedazzled slippers, and a face that looked like someone had unplugged her personality. "What did you do? This is illegal! I have rights! I have guests coming for brunch!" she shrieked. "Mom," Sheriff Dorsey said, "you violated a legally binding agreement. Your neighbor exercised his right to terminate." She blinked. "But I'm the HOA president." "No, you're just a resident now." The crowd erupted. Frank from Lot 7 let out a whistle that probably violated noise ordinances. Betty Lou clapped like she was back in the nurse's corpse. Even Mr. Ellison, who hadn't smiled since the Bush administration, cracked a grin that looked like it needed oiling. Charlene turned to me, mascara threatening to go rogue. "You'll regret this. I will destroy you." I raised my coffee. "Mom, I already sent the invoice for the tree." I watched her retreat like a melted wax figure, no lights, no leverage, no gavel to swing. And the best part? Her entire power supply now depended on an emergency generator that guzzled 200 a day and sounded like a lawnmower with a throat problem. If power corrupts, cutting power disinfects. She said I'd never work again. She forgot who powers this whole town. It's bad when even her roses start wilting out of solidarity. By Monday, Charlene's kingdom smelled like generator fumes and desperation. Her once immaculate lawn looked like it had given up hope. Turns out, when your $4 million mansion runs on a gas, sputtering lawnmower, the pool stops glowing, the fridge stops humming, and your ego has to cool itself off with battery-powered fans from Eisel 7 at Home Depot. Her espresso machine wept. Literally, it started leaking. Just like her sanity. The neighborhood, which once bowed to Charlene's every memo, had gone full mutiny. HOA members started calling it Charlene's curse. Someone anonymously installed a tiny tombstone in her yard that read, "Here lies common sense." But the biggest blow came during the emergency HOA meeting. When Linda Tran stood up with a clipboard, 3 casseroles, and a motion to remove Charlene from the board. It passed 32-1. The one vote against Charlene. And even she looked unsure. "Effective immediately. I assume HOA duties," Linda said cheerfully. "Also, we're canceling all aesthetic fines, and we'll be planting a new tree for Clay." The applause lasted longer than most weddings. Clay didn't say much. He didn't have to. His silence now carried more weight than Charlene's entire marble staircase. The very next week, Charlene's husband Gary filed for separation. Word around town was, he'd moved into a downtown condo, citing irreconcilable idiocy. That left Charlene with the mansion, the mortgage, and a reputation that smelled like burnt toast. Within days, for sale, sign showed up printed crooked as if even the sign had lost hope. Listed at $3.5 million, then 3.2, then 2.9 with motivated seller in all caps. Meanwhile, Clay's phone wouldn't stop ringing. "Are you the guy who unplugged the HOA lady? Can you check our breaker panel? Do you do weddings?" Apparently, standing up to HOA tyranny with legal receipts and a steady hand makes you something of a legend in rural Texas. Clay's business was booked out 6 months ago. Folks drove 2 counties over just to shake his hand and get their porch rewired by the man who humbled a silk pajama tyrant. Still, Charlene held on. She gave a weepy interview to the local paper. "I was just trying to maintain standards." Is that so wrong? The headline read, "Powerless in Paradise." Her house sat empty. Every open house led to whispered stories. Wide-eyed stares at the dark chandeliers, and a final comment. What happened to this place? Word spreads fast when a queen falls off her throne and lands face first in an unpaid electric bill. You can't outshine someone with integrity, even with 300 landscape lights. She used to write fines. Now she's signing mortgage relief papers. The only HOA rule I enforce now. Me. One light bulb must always glow on my porch, with pride. By the end of that summer, my porch looked like a country hymn. 1 cold beer, 2 warm dogs, and enough peace to make a preacher retire. Business, thriving. Me. I was now the electrician folks booked for jobs and revenge consultations. You the breaker guy, they'd ask. The HOA whisper. I'd nod and quote a fair price. Across the street, me Charlene's mansion sat like a haunted wedding cake. Tears of forgotten wealth, iced in silence. Neighbors started waving again. Linda brought over peach cobbler so often my dentist sent a warning letter. The HOA became what it should have been, helpful, quiet, and blissfully boring. Kids rode bikes. Wind chimes returned. Nobody got fined for patriotic gnomes. Even Gus, me, the guy with 7 lawn flamingos and no shame, got a wave instead of a notice. Turns out when tyranny moves out, community moves back in, with potato salad. Every evening, I'd sit on my porch beneath the new lanterns, solar-powered, motion-activated, and installed by yours truly. I kept one light on all night, even when I didn't need it. Not for security, not for aesthetics, but as a reminder of a dad who read contracts like treasure maps, of an oak tree that stood for love, of the moment I realized the law isn't just a shield, it's a spotlight if you aim it right. The best part, that last touch of poetry. I mounted a small solar sign at the edge of my property line, right where Charlene's old easement used to cross. It read private power, public consequences. Visitors thought it was clever. Neighbors thought it was genius. Charlene? Well, I haven't seen her in weeks, but rumor says she's renting a condo with fluorescent lighting and 0 votes. And as for forgiveness, look, I'm not a bitter man. But when someone chainsaws your mother's memorial tree, frames you for violence, and tries to exile you for fixing a fence, you don't hand over lemonade and hugs. You hand over silence, dignified, well-lit silence. Let her keep her regrets. I'll keep my oak tree plaque. Revenge fades, but restoration, that glows forever. So that's how a fence post hole turned into a masterclass in poetic justice. Delivered legally, calmly, and under budget. Not with fists or threats, but with paper trails and porch lights. My dad always said, character doesn't show up loud. It shows up when nobody's watching, with a wrench in one hand and the truth in the other. Turns out, he was right. The HOA didn't just lose power. It lost its illusion of control. This story wasn't just about property lines. It was about boundaries, the kind you draw when someone tries to turn respect into submission. It was about choosing restraint over rage, intelligence over intimidation, and light over pettiness. The oak tree they cut down, that wasn't just a tree. It was a reminder that legacy can't be bulldozed when it's rooted in the right values. So if you took anything from this story, let it be this: never underestimate quiet people with old paperwork, a good memory, and something worth defending, especially if they keep their receipts. If you believe in what this story stood for, justice done the right way, underdogs who outsmart bullies, and porch lights that never go out, drop a comment below. What would you have done in Clay's boots? Would you have forgiven Charlene, like the story? Tap that thumbs up and subscribe so you never miss the next wild ride through the HOA circus. Because next time the clipboard might be coming for you.